can if you want. Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Ça me fait plaisir de vous voir. So last night, the Prime Minister had a conversation with President-elect Trump. It was an opportunity to highlight the fact that the economic relationship between Canada and the United States is balanced and mutually beneficial. The fact is, we need them, and they also need us. Canada is the largest market for the US in the world, larger than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. It is also the case that the things we sell to the United States are the things they really need. We sell them oil, we sell them electricity, we sell them critical minerals and metals. The energy the United States imports from Canada is more important today than ever, at a time when we see how hungry AI is for energy. And Canada's critical minerals and metals are absolutely essential as North America and as the US seeks to develop supply chains which are resilient and secure and are not increasing our dependency on China. We will be taking, our government, a Team Canada approach. The Prime Minister tomorrow will be meeting with the First Ministers of provinces and territories across the country. We have been working and will continue to work with business and labor leaders. This is a moment when Canada needs to be united, we need to be strong, and we need to be smart. There are significant challenges. We know that. We also know that there are real opportunities, and we know that by working together, Canada can be successful. And the final thing I'll point out is yesterday we had the fourth meeting of the Canada-US Cabinet Committee, which I chair, which Minister LeBlanc is the vice chair of. From the outset, the view of the committee has been that the initial principal issues in the Canada-US relationship would be the border and the trade relationship. So we have been focused on precisely this space from the beginning. Et je vais juste résumer un peu en disant que la chose importante, c'est que les relations économiques entre le Canada et les États-Unis sont des relations gagnant-gagnant. Le Canada est le marché le plus important pour les États-Unis, plus important que la Chine, le Japon, le Royaume-Uni et la France, tous ensemble. On va prendre une approche équipe Canada, travaillant avec les premiers ministres des provinces et territoires, travaillant avec les leaders, les gens d'affaires, travaillant avec les syndicats. Hier, le Premier ministre a parlé avec le président élu Trump et il a aussi parlé avec le Premier ministre Legault et le Premier ministre Ford. Et maintenant, mon collègue ministre LeBlanc va dire quelque chose. Sorry.
No,
Now you look like a giant. Okay.
merci beaucoup, Chrystia. As my colleague said, President Trump's comments last evening are an opportunity for us to say to Canadians that we absolutely share the Americans' concern around the integrity of the border, the security of the border. In fact, this is work that we have been doing jointly with the United States for decades. We think it's absolutely appropriate for Canadians to decide who comes into Canada and for Americans to decide who enters the United States of America. This is work that is done on a daily basis between the RCMP, the FBI, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms in the United States, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the Border Services Agency in Canada is doing this work every day. Intelligence information is shared between both countries, including in the fight against fentanyl and the toxic drug crisis that is affecting Canadians and Canadian families as it is the United States. So this work is done literally on a daily basis between law enforcement in Canada and the United States. It's work that we'll continue to do. Je peux peut-être dire que le gouvernement du Canada partage totalement et entièrement les inquiétudes du gouvernement américain, du président Trump, quant à la sécurité des frontières, l'intégrité des frontières. Nous trouvons totalement responsable et approprié que les Américains veulent décider qu'est-ce qui rentre aux États-Unis, comme les Canadiens sont aussi responsables et veulent déterminer qui rentre au Canada. Nous avons depuis des décennies un partenariat avec les autorités policières américaines. La GRC, les services frontaliers, tous les jours, collaborent avec leurs partenaires américains, que ce soit le FBI, Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, US Customs and Border Patrol. On partage des renseignements, on partage des opérations policières et surtout quand il s'agit d'une question aussi difficile pour le Canada, comme les États-Unis, la lutte contre le fentanyl et la crise des opioïdes. Je peux aussi dire que nous allons continuer de travailler avec les autorités américaines. Nous allons prendre des mesures qui s'imposent pour s'assurer l'intégrité de la lutte contre cette criminalité au Canada, comme on s'attend à travailler avec les Américains, comme on a fait depuis des décennies. And finally, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister and I are constantly working with the RCMP, Border Services, to see what additional tools or additional resources they may need to do the work that Canadians expect them to do and that our American partners want to do in collaboration with us. So we have, in recent days, worked with the RCMP and Border Services about continuing to support them in terms of acquiring new technologies, drones, helicopters, additional human resources necessary in the case of surge requirements. All of this work is being done, has been done for many months. Alors moi, je suis tout à fait confiant aussi que nous pourrons continuer d'appuyer la GRC, les services frontaliers dans la lutte contre cette criminalité. Nous allons le faire en augmentant les ressources aux besoins, que ce soit les nouvelles technologies, des drones, des hélicoptères, des effectifs en termes de personnel. Nous sommes au travail depuis plusieurs semaines. J'ai eu des rencontres encore cette semaine avec les hauts dirigeants de la GRC et des services frontaliers pour s'assurer qu'ils ont tous les outils nécessaires, de collaborer avec leurs partenaires américains et de faire le travail que les Canadiens s'attendent qu'on va faire aussi pour protéger notre pays. Et avec ça, je suis...
OK, une question parfois.
D'abord, Mme Freeland, est-ce que vous pensez que c'est un bluff?
Nous devons prendre au sérieux ce que dit le président élu américain et nous prendrons toujours au sérieux ce que dit et dira le président américain. Nous pensons aussi que les relations économiques entre le Canada et les États-Unis sont vraiment gagnant-gagnant. Et pour nous, ce serait important d'avoir l'opportunité de discuter cela avec nos homologues américains. Nous pensons également que notre frontière avec les États-Unis est une frontière sécure. Et comme juste a dit le ministre LeBlanc, nous sommes d'accord que c'est le Canada qui doit décider qui a le droit d'entrer au Canada et c'est les États-Unis qui a le droit de décider qui va entrer les États-Unis. Et comme a dit M. LeBlanc, nous sommes prêts à travailler en étroite collaboration avec nos homologues américains pour assurer que c'est seulement les gens qui ont la permission du gouvernement américain d'entrer aux États-Unis qui vont rentrer par la frontière américaine.
Est-ce que ça veut dire qu'il faut, est-ce que ça veut dire à ce moment, just on a follow-up on that, est-ce que ça veut dire qu'il faut augmenter la surveillance à la frontière avant le 20 janvier pour être prêt?
Je vais donner l'opportunité à Dominic de répondre.
Nous avons depuis longtemps augmenté la surveillance à la frontière selon les renseignements, les menaces qu'ont identifiées les autorités canadiennes et souvent les autorités américaines. Alors, littéralement, tous les jours, il y a un partage de renseignements quant aux menaces. Moi, je viens de dire que la ministre des Finances et moi sommes d'accord pour ajouter des nouvelles technologies, que ce soit des drones, que ce soit d'autres façons de surveiller la frontière, de donner le personnel nécessaire à la GRC et les services frontaliers, comme nous avons déjà fait, mais il n'y a pas de doute que les circonstances exigent que le commissaire de la GRC, que la présidente des services frontaliers puisse dire que le gouvernement a répondu à leurs besoins, et c'est précisément qu'est-ce que nous allons faire.
Ms. Freeland, on the affordable,
Have you spoken to from the United States since this news has dropped? We know you have an extensive Rolodex. Just curious on who you've been in touch with.
I think the important conversation is the conversation that the Prime Minister had with the President-elect. Of course, there have been a lot of conversations that I've had, that other colleagues have had with American business leaders, with American elected officials. So we have been talking to them intensely since before the election. After the election, we'll continue to do that. But truly, it's very meaningful that the Prime Minister was able to speak to the President last night, shortly after the President's announcement. That's the key relationship.
M. Poilievre a dit que, si nécessaire, le Canada pourrait imposer des tarifs aux États-Unis. Est-ce que vous êtes prête à imposer des tarifs aux États-Unis à hauteur peut-être même de 25 %?
On va toujours défendre l'intérêt national. L'intérêt national économique et l'intérêt national. C'est ce qu'on a toujours fait et on va continuer de faire cela. On a déjà l'expérience d'imposition des tarifs du côté des Américains, les tarifs 232 qui étaient imposés au Canada. Le Canada a répondu avec des tarifs. On a répondu dollar par dollar. C'était un moment difficile pour notre pays, mais on était unis et nos mesures de représailles étaient efficaces. Au bout de ligne, le Canada a réussi à avoir une entente avec les États-Unis et les tarifs du deux côtés de la frontière n'étaient pas plus en place. C'était un bon résultat et le fait est qu'on a eu un bon résultat pour deux raisons. Parce qu'on était forts et unis et parce qu'en bout de ligne, les relations sont gagnant-gagnant pour les deux pays.
Ms. Freeland, ask
Sure, okay.
If Canada is going to retaliate with their own tariffs.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So our government will always defend the national interest, and we're going to do it by playing as Team Canada. We're going to do it by working with provinces and territories, business leaders, union leaders. That is the way that Canada wins in a challenging situation. Let's remember that Canada has experienced tariffs from the United States before, not too long ago, the 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum. And when that happened, Canada had a united, smart, targeted response. We imposed dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs on the United States. It was a challenging moment for our country. The important thing is we got through it and our response was successful. We reached an agreement with the Trump administration to have those tariffs lifted, to have the Canadian tariffs on the U.S. lifted, to have the U.S. tariffs on Canada lifted. And the reason we were able to do that is we were smart, we were united, we were strong, and at the end of the day, the economic relationship between our two countries is balanced and mutually beneficial. And that is what drove us to a positive outcome.
Are you open to expanding eligibility for the $250 rebates? We have two opposition parties calling for that and a member of your own caucus.
Our government made an important announcement about affordability on Thursday. We had a good conversation today at Cabinet about that, and we are really glad that Canadians are going to have this opportunity to have a tax break over the holidays, and that working Canadians are going to be able to get a little bit more support with affordability. It's what our country needs right now.
So that's no change? Sorry, Minister,
There's a question for Minister LeBlanc.
Minister LeBlanc, how concerned are you about U.S. firearms making their way into Canada? Mexican President Sheinbaum says that actually most of the guns in that country are coming from the U.S. Is that the same here?
So again, I have a lot of confidence that the Canadian Border Services Agency and the RCMP are ready to deal with what is obviously a concerning circumstance of illegal firearms being imported into this country. It's not a new challenge. I am reassured by some of the statistics I see in terms of what the Border Services Agency are seizing at different ports of entry, and what the RCMP tell me on a lot of the joint criminal operations they have with provincial police, with municipal police, or their American partners. So there again, we totally understand the American concern around the security and integrity of the border. It's a concern that obviously Canadians share. The Government of Canada has exactly those same concerns. And the good news is that for decades, this collaborative work happening literally daily with American authorities and Canadian authorities has allowed us to keep both countries safe, including dealing with some of the real challenges around the opioid crisis, fentanyl coming into our country, illegal firearms coming into our country. As Chrystia said, Canada being able to choose, and the Americans understandably also wanting to choose which persons can enter their country. So this is work that is done effectively, but we're always looking at ways to increase our support for Canadian authorities, and we'll do so based on the advice of the Commissioner of the RCMP, the President of the Border Services Agency, the Director of CSIS. These are people who talk to their American counterparts so often that they have a very, very common operating picture of these challenges.
Is it going to get harder to go back and forth across the border, do you think, under President Trump?
Maybe Chrystia will add something. I don't think that thicker or thinner is the right way to describe the border. I think that the best way to describe the border is in terms of its continued security. $1 billion a day or more of trade crosses that border. Obviously, it's in the interest of the Canadian economy and the American economy that this be done efficiently, but it's also very much in the interest of both countries that it be done safely and securely. So I don't think it's about thickening or thinning the border. I think it's about continuing to assure Canadians and our American partners that we're prepared to do everything necessary to have an efficient, effective border that's secure for both countries. And it's not an either-or choice. I think that we have over decades done this work, and at different moments there have been different challenges. If you take a 10-year period, there have been, for a bunch of reasons, challenges that come up. The good news is Canada and the United States have dealt with those challenges collaboratively, and that's exactly what we're saying to the new administration, that we're anxious to do with them as well.